A Vision of Elder Ouan. Before moving on to my ordination as a monk, I must first recount an important incident, namely the occurrences surrounding Elder Ouan. He was originally a resident of Ban Khaw Narai, who had been interested in mental cultivation practice, Bhavana Patipati, for over 30 years. He had vowed to uphold the 5 precepts, Pañca Sīla, for his entire life, and he also upheld the 8 precepts, Atta Sīla, every full moon day, Uposatha Sīla, without fail. During that time, Elder Ouan moved into a house directly across from mine in Ban Non Somboon. He loved and cared for me as if I were one of his children. Sometime later, Elder Ouan built 2 small monk huts, kuti, at the temple. The 2 kutis were set apart by 20 meters, and a bathroom was to be erected at the halfway point for the occupants' joint use. The 2 kutis had already been completed, and construction on the bathroom was set to begin when Elder Ouan fell ill. So his children and grandchildren transported him back to Ban Khaw Narai, Mat Phu sub-district, for treatment. His symptoms never ameliorated, and he passed away surrounded by loved ones. Upon hearing the news, I went to participate in Elder Ouan's cremation ceremony. I constantly contemplated death, thinking about how one day in the future I would also die, just like Elder Ouan. There was no escaping death. Elder Ouan was over 70 years old. He was a strong man, an industrious worker, and a diligent practitioner. Despite this, he had died and left behind his loved ones. Although I was still young, it was possible that I would also drop dead soon, just as small mangoes can fall from the tree. I was the same way. I could die within the next couple of days, in fact. Plenty of children die at a young age. There's no way for us to know when our final day will come. That entire day, I was consumed with thoughts about death. As I performed the watering ceremony on Elder Ouan's corpse, the colors and details of his final outfit were imprinted on my mind. I returned home after the cremation, never once thinking that Elder Ouan would feel downhearted. In fact, I was confident that he would be reborn in a heavenly realm due to his many noble deeds. He gave charity, dana, on a continuous basis, and never wavered from the 5 precepts or the 8 precepts. He had prayed and chanted regularly. I was certain he would go to heaven, saga, or the Brahma realm. That night, I entered my usual tranquil meditative state. In a vision, nimitta, Elder Ouan walked toward me. I thought, why is he here? He had cultivated many wholesome deeds, kusala, so why wasn't he in a blissful state, sukhati? As he approached more closely, I wanted to ask him, Elder, why aren't you in heaven? What are you doing here? Just then, Elder Ouan came in and embraced me from behind. Once his arms made contact with my body, a chill propagated throughout my entire body. I told him, Elder Ouan, don't hug me too tightly. I'm cold. Please loosen your hold. He obliged and slackened his embrace. I asked Elder Ouan, Elder, what are you doing here? You cultivated so much merit and virtue. Why didn't you go to heaven? He whispered in my ear, I'm still worried about the bathroom that hasn't been built. I asked, where do you want to build the bathroom? He replied, at the midpoint between the 2 kutis that have already been erected. I told Elder Ouan, no problem, Elder. Tomorrow I'll tell Mr. San and all our relatives in Ban Khaw to have this bathroom constructed as soon as possible. Just wait to rejoice, anumodhana, in the merit of building this bathroom. Elder Ouan accepted and said, okay, tell them to finish it quickly. I'll be waiting around here. Thereafter, he released his hold and my mind, citta, withdrew from the meditative state. I applied my wisdom to delicately comb through this vision and arrived at a clear understanding, which I will explain later. The next morning, I dashed over to tell Mr. and Mrs. San all about Elder Ouan and the bathroom. Upon listening to what I had to say, Mr. and Mrs. San were stunned. We do recall Elder Ouan mentioning building the bathroom. If you hadn't mentioned it, we would have forgotten all about it. I, on the other hand, first heard about it from Elder Ouan only the night before. I directed Mr. San to quickly mobilize all our relatives to build the bathroom at Ban Khaw Narai. They were to finish it within 2 days, in time to dedicate the merit to Elder Ouan, who was waiting nearby to rejoice in its completion. If they completed it all swiftly, Elder Ouan would be able to anumodhana and make his way to heaven. Otherwise, he would be stuck in this existence as a hungry ghost, beta, for a long time. Once Mr. Sand heard this, he jumped on his bike and frantically pedaled away. He explained everything to our relatives, who hurriedly loaded the tools and equipment into a 10-wheeler. A team of around 30 people was assembled. I pointed out the location for the bathroom, and they immediately got to digging and laying down the pipes. The group of woodworkers worked speedily as well. As a result, the bathroom was completed within that very same day. The next day was a full moon Uposatha day. All the relatives joined in the ceremony to dedicate the merit from the kutis and bathroom to Elder Ouan. That night, I sat down to meditate, pondering whether Elder Ouan had received the merit dedicated to him. Once my mind entered a tranquil meditative state, I saw Elder Ouan walk toward me. He appeared bright and happy. The skin on his body and face glowed. His clothes were attractive. Elder Ouan stood near me and said, "Thoon, I no longer have any worries. If you hadn't helped me, who knows for how long I would have been a hungry ghost. Thank you for helping me. Without your help, I would still be a hungry ghost waiting to build the bathroom, stuck in a perpetual state of despair in this world. May you cultivate a lot of merit and uphold the precepts without fail, and tell others about my story. Tell them not to be attached to anything. If you cling to something, your mind is obscured by that attachment, and you have no chance of making it to heaven." Finally, Elder Ouan concluded by announcing, "Now I'm on my way to heaven." With that, he floated upward into the sky until he was no longer visible. My mind withdrew from meditation, and I contemplated attachment in a clear manner. I reflected on all that transpired with Elder Ouan and decided that it was an exemplary cautionary tale of the harmful consequences of attachment. I will now explain about attachment to possessions. The mind's attachment is a bond so strong that to even be aware of it is a challenge. It restrains and obscures our minds. Despite the piles of money invested into cultivating merit, your mind, citta, can be rerouted in the final moments before departure. If your mind is anchored to something, it will refuse to leave. It does not matter how much merit you have accumulated. It cannot compel you to relinquish that attachment. Now, your merit doesn't disappear. It is embedded in your mind. However, the strength of attachment is greater. It leads your mind astray without your knowing it. The duration of attachment is contingent on many things. While some minds find their way back slowly, others realize the way back more quickly. The rationale for letting go of attachment is an intricate topic because its causes and factors vary for each individual. Just as each person's character is unique, so is the degree of being consumed by attachment. Consequently, attachment overpowers merit, punya, and wholesomeness, kusala. That is why the Buddha told Venerable Ananda, "People who go to heaven are few, like the horns of the ox. Those who cannot go to a blissful destination or heaven are like the hairs on the ox. The number of hairs and horns on an ox are incomparable. This is because the strength of the mind's attachment is deeply embedded in that which we love. Our attachment dictates our next existence, bhava, and rebirth, jati. The wise contend that if your mind is heavily inclined toward wholesome, kusala, and meritorious deeds, punya, those good credits will lead you to heaven. If your mind is heavily inclined toward unwholesome, akusala, and demeritorious deeds, papa, those bad credits will unequivocally lead you to a bad destination, tukati. People often take a straightforward view of this without pausing to consider each component on its own. For instance, they believe that a heavy inclination toward the good indicates making a large measure of merit, namely extensive donations of the 4 requisites, jatupacaya. Monks' robes, every conceivable variety of savory and sweet foods, shelters for monks, and medicine to cure various diseases. It follows then that a heavy inclination toward the bad indicates making a large measure of demerit, such as extensive killing, extensive stealing, extensive adultery, extensive use of words in harmful ways, and extensive intoxication. This thinking is partially correct, but still doesn't align with the objective. The correct meaning is as follows. The term a lot of merit or a lot of demerit means a mind heavy in merit or a mind heavy in demerit. This is not absolutely determined by deeds. Rather, the weight of this a lot inclination is decided at the critical instant in which the mind, citta, is about to depart the body, in its final breath. This instant is very important. In the moment right before the citta is to leave the body, a mental image, nimitta, will appear for a brief moment. For example, even if an individual had killed a lot and had only committed a few good deeds, if their mind is inclined toward the good in the moment that they die, when the citta leaves the body, it will immediately depart for a blissful destination. Or suppose someone had performed many good deeds, giving charitably, upholding the precepts, practicing mental cultivation fervently, but is weighed down with concerns or worries about something at the moment the citta takes off. The mind will despair, be depressed, and cling to those things, and they will definitely depart for a realm of suffering, abhaya bhumi. The good merit cannot help at all. Elder Ouan had been charitable, honored the precepts, and dedicated himself to mental cultivation practice. Not once in the course of 30 years did he break the precepts. But before dying, Elder Ouan's citta was consumed with wanting to build the bathroom, and he was worried that he would not get to it. Because of this small wrong view, he immediately became a hungry ghost. If I hadn't intervened at that time, who knows how long he would have inhabited that bleak existence. Another thing that we should understand is that if someone is about to die, dress them in new clothes and bundle up any belongings that were precious to them, or place those items into a bag and position the bag beside them. Inform them that you have set aside their belongings. This way, once their citta has exited their body, they will recognize that these items are theirs and can be immediately taken with them. I have had extensive experience with this, such as with my father and Elder Ouan. The outfit they were wearing at the time of death is what sticks with them until they receive their family's dedication of merit. Thus, attachment to anything will instantly alter the rebirth destination. This is because the mind is mercurial, fragile, and extremely quick. Over the course of an ordinary day, we think and feel many things. We are inadequately aware of what our mind pegs for our subsequent rebirths. The only course is to practice Dhamma and employ mindful wisdom to break the mind. Train yourself to understand that nothing can truly belong to you. Practice such that your mind is free from worries over any issue. That way, when you die, you will immediately set off for a blissful destination.